Joseph, master of dreams.
Memory text. Then they said to one another, "Look, this dreamer is coming." Genesis 37:19.
The last chapters of Genesis, 37 to 50, are all about Jacob's 11th son, Joseph. It is one of the longest narratives on one person, in the Bible. He has dreams that upset his brothers and is given the nickname, Dreamer. He is sold into slavery, tossed into prison, but becomes ruler of Egypt. Finally, the book ends with Joseph's death. Joseph is heralded as a great patriarch on par with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Joseph's life is full with a trust in God, and having evil against him turned into blessings.
Family troubles.
Genesis 37:1. Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan.
Jacob has now claimed the land God promised to Isaac and Abraham. He was now looked upon as someone who has claimed the land. His problems are now spiritual, and the family struggles with conflicts.
Joseph has a habit, it seems, of being a tattletale. He brings bad reports of his brothers to his father. Jacob makes the problem worse by favoring Joseph, and gives him special clothing.
With treatment like this, his brothers act like most people would. They begin to hate him. Joseph's dreams really set off a firestorm.
Genesis 37:5-9. Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, "Please hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright, and indeed your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf." And his brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us? Or shall you indeed have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers, and said, "Look, I have dreamed another dream. And this time, the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bow down to me."
We have to realize that Jacob did indeed want Joseph, as firstborn of Rachel, to have the rights of the firstborn. Perhaps the brothers knew this. Jacob might have been happy to hear this dream, but rebukes Joseph. This was not the time to be saying such things. Jacob might have finally learned about waiting for God to deliver promises, and not acting on things himself. Now Joseph is hated by his brothers more than ever. Joseph will eventually be proven as a prophet. Jacob will be part of this as well when he meets Joseph in Egypt.
In the meantime, Joseph is portrayed as someone who patiently waits and trusts in God. But did the treatment and dreams of Joseph also turn him into a proud young man? Let us remember the words of Jesus.
Yet it shall not be so among you, but whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave.
The attack on Joseph. Now in Genesis 37, the hatred for Joseph turns his brothers into a jealous rage. It is probably easy for us to understand why they did. It reminds us to have a loving heart no matter what we think of other people.
Being jealous can easily turn into acts of violence. Every day we hear of some evil act born out of hate and jealousy. Jacob sends Joseph out to find his brothers who are with the flocks. Joseph is to give him a report if all is well. Joseph at first cannot find them, but is guided by a stranger, who helps him find them. Now the brothers see a perfect time to rid themselves of this dreamer.
They all want to kill Joseph except Reuben, who suggests they throw him into a pit. We must note that Reuben had planned on rescuing Joseph later. Reuben here, and later, seems to have wanted to turn from his evil ways. After Joseph is thrown into the pit, a caravan of Ishmaelites going to Egypt passes by. Judah convinces the others to sell Joseph as a slave to them. Reuben must have been elsewhere when this happened, because he later goes to the pit to get Joseph. He seems genuinely upset at Joseph not being there.
Then all the brothers, who need to explain all this to their father, come up with a deception. They take Joseph's tunic, dip it in goat's blood, then take it to Jacob. Jacob is told that Joseph must have been killed by a wild beast. He tears his clothes in agony, and mourns the loss for days. His family tries in vain to comfort him. Jacob's sons are the opposite of what God wants us to be. If we are followers of Christ, we are to become new creatures. Put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. Ephesians 4:24.
Judah and Tamar. In Genesis 38, the story of Tamar is fitting to be included here. It shows how dysfunctional the family has become, but also how God can turn evil into good. Judah has had a falling out with his brothers and moves away. He marries a Canaanite woman and has 3 sons. The firstborn, is given Tamar as his wife. But was so wicked, God put him to death.
The second son, Onan, was to fulfill his brotherly duty and have children with Tamar. He defiantly refuses and God also puts him to death. Judah promises to give his youngest son, Shelah, to Tamar. Judah was worried that Shelah might suffer the same fate as his other 2 sons and does not want to give him to Tamar. Tamar, now feeling shame, takes drastic action.
Judah's wife dies, and he seeks a prostitute. But Tamar has disguised herself as one to trick Judah into giving her a child. When she asks for payment, Judah has no money, but gives her his signet, cord, and staff as a pledge. Judah sends a goat to her as payment later, but nobody knows who or where she is.
Later, when Tamar is revealed to be pregnant, Judah demands she be killed as a harlot. She then produces Judah's personal items and he is shamed into claiming her more righteous than he. Tamar has twins, Perez, which means breaking through, and Zerah. Perez now breaks through, and becomes a direct paternal ancestor of David, the lineage of Jesus Christ.
When we look back in the last generations, we see influential women like Rebecca. Others are Leah, Rachel, and Tamar. It continues later with Rahab and Ruth, also maternally related to Jesus.
Yes, God changes good into evil, but what can we learn? Do we continue in bad ways with the hope God will turn it around? Or do we not realize that God's way first is always the best way? There are always lasting consequences from our bad judgments. We think of Tamar as more righteous. But we also need to put this in perspective. We cannot condone her actions. Nobody should ever try and do things their own way. The right way is waiting for God to make a way.
Joseph, a slave in Egypt. Now in Genesis 39, we continue with Joseph. He was sold as a slave and bought in Egypt by Potiphar, captain of the guard.
Potiphar immediately sees his house prosper under Joseph, and gives him complete authority over his household and land. Under Joseph, everything Potiphar has, is blessed many times over.
But Potiphar's wife notices Joseph, and starts to entice him to come to bed with her. Joseph refuses.
Genesis 39, 8-9. But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is no one greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness, and sin against God?
Notice Joseph calls this a sin against God. We are made in God's image. We are to reflect His character. Every sin is an act that defiles God's laws. It is sin not only in human terms, but it strikes to the very character of God. It is clear that Joseph has learned about the true God and trust. Joseph risks a lot when he refuses. The wife, feeling disgraced, makes up a story of Joseph attacking her. Potiphar has Joseph thrown into prison.
Many Bible scholars have wondered if Potiphar actually believed his wife. That it pained him to send Joseph away, but he had to maintain some sort of respect from anyone watching. He might not have wanted to be shown favor to a slave over his wife. Joseph's blessings did not defile him. He stayed true to God. This shows Joseph is willing to accept God's instruction, not man's, even if it costs him with prison.
Genesis 39, 21-23. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, it was his doing. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper.
Joseph's following of God not only blessed him, but it blessed those around him. He was trusted. Our interactions with others are what people know us by. Do you bless people by your actions? Do they know you are trustworthy and follow God?
The dreams of Pharaoh. As Joseph waits in prison, he meets two former officers of Pharaoh. One, the cupbearer, or butler. The other, a baker. They tell him their dreams, and Joseph interprets them. The butler is restored to his position, and the baker is killed.
Joseph had asked the butler to remember him when he is with Pharaoh, but he does not. At least not right away. Sometime later, Pharaoh has two dreams that disturbed him greatly. None of his wise men could interpret the dreams. God must have kept the men silent, because they could have made something up just to appease Pharaoh. Perhaps they knew Pharaoh could not be fooled this time. Either way, it was at this time the chief butler is reminded of Joseph.
Genesis 41, 14-16. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon, and he shaved, changed his clothing, and came to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that you can understand a dream, to interpret it. So Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace.
The first dream was 7 ugly, skinny cows eating 7 fat cows, but remaining skinny. Followed by 7 good stalks of grain, being eaten by 7 withered ones. Joseph tells Pharaoh that both dreams are the same. That Egypt will have 7 good years of abundant harvest. Followed by 7 famine years. Joseph also first gave all glory of interpreting to God, and God alone. Joseph suggests that Pharaoh appoint the wisest man to be in charge of the plan to save grain for the famine.
Pharaoh answers, Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word.
Joseph has gone from a young man thrown in a pit, sold into slavery, locked in jail, to having command over all Egypt. This gives us hope that we can trust God fully, and daily cling to His promises. Even when events seem impossible. One day soon, Jesus will return. God will not remain silent, we can be assured of that.